Okay, my friends, once again, another shocker du jour. Today I am going to be talking about the pre-flood population. I'm not even sure what this is going to turn out to sound like, but there was the Sumerians, and they were, apparently the Annunaki were involved with this Sumerian culture. And according to Sitchin and according to whatever documentation they can find, they were the deities and the gods and all that business before Zeus. It sounds to me, now this gets extremely confusing, because it could be the same story told from a different perspective, or it could be an entirely different story, and which story is correct and which story is wrong. I got to admit, I am confused at this moment. But according to the documentation and all of the sources that seem to be valid, and I can't say for sure they are, but boy, I tell you, there's a lot of overlap, and I know about Typhon, that's no question about him and the fish, and the giants, all that stuff is true. So I go back to, and the flood story was true too, because of the red bread, the great clay, and the black cap. Worldwide is that signature. And the silica-rich oceans worldwide is the signature of that impact. So I get back to 1500 BC, approximately, where Velikovsky, I believe, started his recording of what happened at that event, maybe a little earlier, another catastrophe, I'm not sure. And then after that, the world was in chaos, ages in chaos. That's another book he wrote. And then the sea people were, because everything was a sea at this point. Everything was wiped out, basically wiped off the face of the planet. They had to start over again. They became sea peoples. And they all of a sudden just showed up out of nowhere. And I think they were the remnants of the Atlantis culture, which was a worldwide seafaring culture. And somehow they must have reorganized somewhere, and all of a sudden swept into the populated areas and just took over. And they called them the sea people. Nobody know where. They still don't know where they came from. Anyway, we're going to discuss the Annunaki, and this goes back. Like I say, I go back to about 1500 BC, somewhere around. I feel pretty comfortable about the events from there coming forward, according to all the documentation. And like I said, I don't think it's taken from one thing or from just the Bible, just from this or just from that or just from Ovid or Hesiod or there's a zillion of them, and they all had a similar story, a little bit different. But I think there's, like I say, after I saw Typhon, it was all over. And of course I had the giants too, but Typhon really pulled it out of the woods for me. I said, this is just it. There's no denying this. So what else did Apollodorus write? A whole lot of stuff. So I look at that, and I look at it now with a whole fresh perspective and a respect for what he might have been actually saying was true. Because virtually, well, there's some things that aren't exactly what I would agree with as far as Typhon goes. So maybe there are some things wrong, but there's enough right that I can feel comfortable talking about it from that point coming forward down, maybe. But what happened before that? What about the Sumerians? The Annunaki? And were they the fallen angels? I mean, there's so much to think about now that it's overwhelming. It's absolutely overwhelming. So we're just going to have to put one foot in front of the other. So let's start with the Annunaki. What does Wikipedia say about it? They just have an overview. Then we're going to talk with chat and discuss what the possibilities would, what if this and what about that and what about this, how would that change this? Chat's a pretty interesting thing to talk to, because it thinks a little bit. But the problem is, it still relies on mainstream opinions, which no longer are true. They're just not true. They're absolutely just not true. Everything there was is biology. The myths hold a lot of truth, and we got to start thinking outside the box again. You know, just put that stuff aside that you've been taught, and just say, you know, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. Because Roger's over here holding stuff in his hand that says it's not true, and I can prove my stuff is true. And if my stuff is true, that stuff is not true. Take it from there. My stuff's true, that's not true. It's all bottom line.